Welcome. This is the Midlife Rising podcast. Sherry and I have been talking about time lately and researching the topic in a way that we've never even considered before recently. The reason we're doing this is because the women who are struggling in menopause are also the ones who have a difficult relationship with time. They're hustling all the time. They have too much to do. And they can never seem to get ahead. And so we have been identifying all the beliefs that we have about time. Kind of like a lot of the coaches out there who are talking about money mindset and manifestation. So what we've discovered is that our culture really thinks about time as an enemy, as something to beat or to control. And we seem to be losing this battle, especially as midlife women. But Sherry and I have cracked the code. We found a way to unravel all of our conditioning around time without trying to be more productive, more tools, or more hustle hacks. We want women all over the world to be able to slow down without sacrificing their to-do list or taking things off their plate. And today, we're going to get started. So think about it. What if the way we've been taught to think about time is the very thing keeping us stuck? Today, we're going to unpack the 5 biggest lies you've learned about time and the truths that might just set you free. Let's begin. You're a woman over 40 who spent your life being the one who holds it all together. But now your body's changing and your soul is done pretending everything is fine. Welcome to Midlife Rising. We're your hosts, Sherry and Jen, twin sisters and modern medicine women, here to help you rewire your stress response, balance your hormones, and reclaim your feminine power. Every episode is a rebellion against the rules you never agreed to and a return to yourself. Join us where midlife isn't a crisis, it's a catalyst. I feel like I say this at the beginning of every episode, Jen, but this one is like, I'm so excited to talk about this one because, first of all, it's new and it feels like it arrived as a download. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. I remember that day you and I were having a conversation. I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I remember you just like
money.
Oh, yes. We were talking about money. And money mindset.
Money mindset.
And suddenly you went, oh my God, it's the exact same thing as time. How we think about time. And I got chills like over my whole body because I knew that was just, it's so unique and nobody's talking about it in this way.
No, the way that everybody's talking about time is how to be more productive, how to get more efficient, how to get better at managing your time. And what we're talking about is completely turning all of that on its head and kind of not even like, it's not even thinking about time the way that we think about it. It's not trying to manage it. It's not trying to control it. It's befriending it.
Yeah. Letting it love us.
Yes. Instead of being such an enemy.
You already said one of the beliefs right there. Like everybody's trying to teach women how to manage their time. And actually people ask me for that all the time. They want a time management course. And that's not what we need to do. In fact, time is not something to be managed.
Yeah.
Like think about what time is. Time is a metaphysical idea.
Let's just acknowledge that, like, what our listeners are probably going through first, because I still feel pretty new to this. I feel like we have something really unique here, and that's what has got me so excited, and it is working for us. But I also remember, like, very recently being constantly behind or feeling constantly behind, feeling always rushed and being pulled in 18 different directions. And, some of the other things that have come up, especially as an entrepreneur, are this feeling of being behind. Like I'm falling behind, or like people are getting ahead of me. I don't know. I feel like I've really struggled with my own relationship with time, particularly since like it really started to ramp up in my late 30s and 40s.
Because it feels like time is getting faster as we get older. I also feel that like I feel this sense of urgency to get stuff done
because we live less in the present. The older we get, the more we think about the future and what's going to happen next, and more about the past. Instead of, as when you're a little kid, you live in the present.
I know. I see it every day with my kid.
Yeah, she's not thinking about her even the last 8 hours. She's thinking about, well, what are we doing right now?
There's another reason, Cher, that time feels like it speeds up as we get older. And I don't think a lot of people think about it this way. And that is that a year in your life when you are 5 is 20% of your life. A year in your life when you're 50 is a 50th of your life.
And not only that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things that we're going to talk a little bit about today, but that we are bringing into all of our live events and our membership that are really going to shift the way that midlife women think about time, experience time.
Yeah. And we have uncovered many, and we're only going to talk about 5 of them today. Let's get into them.
Yeah, this is the number one. Time is scarce. Never have enough time. This was the first one that I really thought about because it was my exploration of my own scarcity mindset around money that really got me first thinking about the scarcity mindset that I have around time, and that they're really coming from the same place.
And that is exactly what I wanted to get into this a bit deeper, because if I were to say to somebody, if you think time is scarce, it's not. They're going to be like, well, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I would have said that, a year ago as well.
So explain. Time is not scarce? Why not?
Well, it's like you said before, Jen, time expands when we are present. And the way that I like to think about this is we've all had experiences where we feel like we are in flow. Like when you're sitting at your desk or you're doing something that you love doing. It's not even necessarily at your desk. Maybe it's something creative. Maybe it's cooking. Maybe it's some sort of art, or maybe it's working. And you have this feeling of just like things are in flow. And when you're in those moments, time, it feels a bit like a time warp because you're not paying attention to the time at all. You're entirely present in what you're doing. And time actually feels very expansive and easy and in flow.
Because you're not thinking about it. It's sort of not a catch-22, but like it's a circular brain because you're like,
Yeah.
You're in it and you're not thinking about time. So it doesn't feel like it's passing.
It's about how you feel.
You know what, Cher? When it's so interesting, because I think this is also sort of a circular argument in that when I lived in South Africa, I suppose everybody talked about it, but white people talked about it a lot, about African time.
Oh, yeah.
It was this concept that Africans don't have a concept of time. Like I had friends who would show up like 2 hours late for a dinner party. And we would just be appalled. Like we'd be like, that is just so rude. And they would walk in completely calm and unstressed. In fact, as a nation, like the Black people in that country generally did not have the same concept of time as the white people.
Mm-hmm. And I bet they were judged for it, right?
Absolutely. All the white people were always like, thought their view of time was better. It was like this definition of time and how it should be spent and how it shouldn't be dealt with. And it was a circular thing because the more that we see time as scarce, the more stressed we get.
Yeah. These are very big generalizations that I'm about to make. But if you look at the different cultures, and because I worked for a worldwide company that had offices in 76 different countries, I noticed how differently people work. And particularly in the US, time is it's a constant rush. It's a constant rush. It's a constant hustle. It's working overtime. It's never taking breaks. It's the rat race. It's a race against time. Canada's a close second, I think, and same with the UK. But when you start to look at other European countries, I just spent some time in Scandinavia, and everybody there, they close down at 4. They leave the office. They take their lunch breaks. It is a much different way of looking at time.
Yeah. Well, and sure, look at Spain and France. Like they shut down everything for 2 hours in the middle of the day and value the rest that they get in the middle of the day, that break. We have no concept of that. We don't even take a break to eat.
So it's a constant feeling that time is scarce. It's the productivity culture that comes from patriarchy, that masculine. We talked about this back on the episode where we were talking about masculine versus feminine energy. And I forget what episode that is. But it's the need or this
guilt if you're not being productive.
Right.
Not for everybody. Not everybody feels that. But it's certainly judgment when you're not, judgment if somebody's not being productive enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is for women, it's this need, it's linked to busyness and the need to be, our culture has made busy important. And it's also, it's linked to this need to keep moving. Like I can't stop because what will happen if I slow down?
Mm-hmm.
So like summarizing that, we have a belief that time is scarce. And I know that this is going to be a tough one to say, well, that's true. Like our listeners are going to say, well, that is truth. And yet I want to just ask our listeners to set that aside just for the next half an hour and ask, what if time were abundant?
In academics, there's this concept called sense making. Like there's lots of movies about this where if you go out into space, the concept of time completely is completely different. So our relationship with time is based on our belief system and our filters and our past experiences. And that's, I guess, if I were to take anything away from today's episode, if I'm just like starting to dabble into this concept, that would be it.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on to the next belief?
Time is linear. Meaning that it moves only in one direction, and that is forward.
That's also a really tough one, Cher.
So our ancestors, before the modern day clock came into existence, our ancestors, they didn't see time as linear. It was cyclical. So their lives were built around cycles, the cycles of the season, the cycle of the moon, of the sun, for women, their menstrual cycles. So they weren't on this 9 to 5 hour day. They weren't on the clock at all.
You know what I just thought of, Cher, that makes this seem absolutely ridiculous is if you think about how so many Western cultures try to control time by setting our clocks. Like we're going to set our clocks back this weekend.
Yeah.
We're forced into a linear view of time.
And if we want to get really woo-woo for a second here, there are indigenous cultures that also believe that there are multiple planes. So there, your future is now and your past is now.
I believe that to an extent, as much as I can wrap my brain around it.
Yeah. These are sort of mind-bending kind of discussions that we're having, because time is such an elusive concept to actually grasp.
Okay, so time is linear. So this obviously comes from patriarchy too. How do we apply like the patriarchy to this linear timing?
Well, it's similar to what we were just talking about, in that it's masculine frameworks, it's productivity, it's the rise of the Industrial Revolution, where we moved from agricultural to industrial. And so it was less about rising with the sun, eating or feeding the animals when they needed to be fed, feeding ourselves when we needed to be fed. It was more about factory. We start at this time. You punch in the clock. It was much more, and it wasn't even 9 to 5 when that first came into play. It was like much longer hours and 6 days a week. And so, and most of that it comes from a masculine, logical way of thinking.
And that thinking permeates every business, even if it's not corporate. No matter what kind of work you do, it's always a race against the clock.
Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained, Jen, that we don't even notice that it's there. It's just the way we live.
Yeah. You know when, Shara, that I experience the difference in the most tangible way is when I take my watch off when I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
I just flow with the day. Like, when am I hungry? It doesn't matter what time it is. I'm hungry now, so I'll eat now. Or I get up when the sun rises because that's when it's starting to get light in my room. That's when I notice it.
Oh, yeah. Then think of the amount of time that we spend feeling pressured. Like, it's the moment I sit down at my desk and I judge myself because it's 10 after 9 instead of 9.
I finally got over that.
Yeah, it's taken a long time.
Okay, so what's the truth?
Time is cyclical. It's moving in a circle. It's not linear. So it's coming back to the idea that we talked about a couple of episodes ago, which is feminine time moves in the rhythm of our bodies, of the seasons, of the day, the moon, the sun. So we can maybe just loosen our grip on this idea that it's only moving forward, and maybe just consider that we could move with our cycles instead of in a linear fashion.
I like that.
So number 3,
yep,
time is a commodity. So this one is, time is money. We hear that all the time. So we think of time as something that can be spent or earned or stolen even, or given away,
or priced.
Yes.
Like, how much is an hour of my time worth? People have different concepts of this. So my ex is always comparing, like his time, he gets paid X amount an hour, and it's like, whatever, a couple $100 an hour or something. And, mom is always saying like, well, you should go look at 5 different stores to get the best price on something. And ex-husband is always saying, well, that's not worth my time. So mom has a very different concept of time in terms of like, time for her is, it's worth my time to save $1. And for him, it's not the same concept. And it's like, it's wrapped up in money completely.
Yeah.
For both in a very different way. But it just makes the point that your relationship with time We sort of assume that we all have the same relationship with time. Like we all think of time in the same way. And we don't.
Yeah, it's true.
So this time is a commodity.
This also comes from industrial capitalism, which was exactly when people's lives were divided into hours and wages. And then our time became money because an hour in the day was worth a certain amount of money.
And sure, that's exactly how time gets mixed up with our own self-worth. Because somebody who's getting paid $20 an hour is suddenly worth less than somebody who's getting paid $500 an hour.
Is that true? No.
But it makes you feel that way.
On both sides. I have met people who feel that they are less than because they only, like, quote unquote, I only make $20 an hour. Or, you can run into somebody else who says, well, I only make $100 an hour. It's all relative. And they feel like they are less than or worth less or less valuable than the person who makes $500 an hour. And you'll also meet people who make $500 an hour who look down on those who make less. But no one person is worth more or less than another.
Yep.
I think something that struck me is that we think of time as a resource. Like, what if we imagined that we were in a conversation with time or in a relationship with it, and it's going to respond to how we treat it
instead of just treating it as a commodity like toilet paper? Of course, we're going to run out of it then.
Right. That's a good metaphor.
Time as a resource. I'm actually trying to think about that because you haven't said that to me before. We think of time as a resource.
People say that.
Yeah. Well, people say time is money all the time.
And we've said that too, right? Like my relationship with time. I need to improve my relationship with time. And yet we don't actually really think about it as a relationship. We think of it as a resource, something to spend or earn or waste.
It's so interesting, actually. A perfect example of a relationship of time with time. I remember needing to catch a flight home at one point. I was living in Montreal and I was coming home for Christmas and I had to work right till the last day or something. And so I really needed to catch this flight or I wasn't going to be home in time for Christmas dinner. And this was back, I think, in the year 2000 when we still had paper tickets to get on a plane.
Oh, yeah. Oh, was that recently? Gosh, it feels like
it was that recent. Yep. And so I got in a taxi, got to the airport, took me like 45 minutes to get to the airport and forgot my ticket. And I had no way of getting it other than actually going back home to get it. So I got to the airport and literally said to my cab driver, I went, oh my goodness, I forgot my ticket. How fast can you get me back downtown to my apartment and back here? And he goes, 2 hours. And I said, I need you to do it in 25 minutes. And then I had to let it go. So this guy raced. I can't believe he actually took on the challenge. All that to say, what I did is I let go. I was like, I'm going to miss my flight. And I let it go. And I made it. Somehow, this taxi driver got downtown and got me back to the airport in rush hour traffic on Christmas Eve. And I remember even at that time, before any of this was even like a concept for me, and I went, I don't know whether I had angels that like flew us part of the way or whether time actually stopped for me for a bit. Like I felt like we had time warped. And in this conversation that we're having now, I think it had something to do with like letting go of the expectations and of this feeling that time is scarce and the need to be on time, that suddenly time started working with me.
That is not the first time I've heard a story like that, Jen.
And I think there's some truth to it. There's some kind of way that you can bend time.
Yeah. There is. So let's move on to number 4.
Okay.
I don't know that we would use these words, but the idea that time is moral.
Okay.
Good people use their time wisely.
Oh, yes. Use your time wisely. How many times did you hear that as a kid from a teacher or a parent?
Yeah. And lazy people waste time.
We probably wouldn't say that. Well, don't waste time. Like, don't waste your time is something we say all the time. But you're right. There's this inherent morality about it. We judge people as bad.
Yes.
Maybe not everybody takes this view, but often we judge people as bad for wasting time.
We also judge them for being late, just like we were talking about earlier. If you're late, you're not respecting somebody else's time. If you're early, you're good. If you're late, you're bad.
And you're right. We wouldn't say it that way necessarily, but that is the subtle judgment that we're making.
Yes.
We get a bit angry. We get annoyed, especially if somebody's wasted our time. But even if they're wasting their own time.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with us.
We judge ourselves if we're doing nothing. I used to love, like as a 20-something, before I had, I don't know. I was going to say before I had all this responsibility, but I still like doing it now, even sometimes. I just like lying in bed in the morning and doing nothing. Like just thinking, not even picking up my phone, but just like thinking. And I think for me, in my 20s, that was kind of my meditation time. I could just allow my mind to wander and process. And I enjoyed doing that. And I also just liked the coziness of my bed. And I didn't want to get out of it because every other morning I have to get out of bed at whatever time it was, 7, to get to work or to get to school or wherever I was going. And I remember other people judging me for that. How can you just lay there in bed doing nothing?
Although at the same time, sure, it's a thing. Like in South Africa, they call it a lie-in.
Yeah.
Well, sleeping in is when you've overslept.
Okay.
But it's a nuance there. Like I do that. I do the exact same thing. I get tons of ideas when I'm lying in bed. In fact, this morning I was lying. I mean, it was 5:30 in the morning, but I was lying in bed just relishing. And I don't judge myself for that now, but so as it applies to other things like that, like lying on the couch without being productive, lying and watching TV when you haven't earned rest. We talk about that in our program all the time. Like this is it's a coping strategy to keep moving all the time. And part of what's wrapped up in this, I've got to keep moving, I've got to be productive all the time, is this concept that I shouldn't be wasting my time because I'm bad if I am.
Yeah. Yes. One of our members actually just said on one of our recent calls that she couldn't just sit on the couch and watch a TV show without doing laundry. It's the multitasking, trying to double up on our time, trying to be more efficient, to use it more wisely. And, it's the same. It's any kind of multitasking is a scarcity mindset around time. And it's this idea that time can be wasted and that's bad if you're wasting time. Watching TV is apparently a waste of time. And is it? Like, who gets to decide?
I don't think our listeners would necessarily use the word like bad for wasting time, but they'd probably say, I feel guilty when I waste time.
Yeah. And, you just touched also upon a nuance that I don't see a lot of people aware of this. And again, it was in the Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, where she talked about the difference between guilt and shame. And guilt, so I'm totally paraphrasing. I don't know the exact words that she used in the book, but guilt is essentially feeling bad for doing something or not doing something. Shame is feeling like a bad person for doing something or not doing something.
Well, and maybe that's an important distinction. So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, this doesn't resonate, it's very possible that you have the self-worth that you don't feel like a bad person for wasting time.
That's a sign that your self-worth is in a good place.
At least around this topic, yeah.
Time is neutral. There's no morality associated with time. You're not better because you're busy. You're not worse because you're not busy or quote unquote lazy.
Okay, Cher, what's the last one that we're going to talk about today?
Time is hierarchical. So this one relates to something we were talking about earlier. And that is that some people's time matters more than others. So, the person who makes $500 an hour versus the person who makes 20.
Or just on how you value that person.
Oh, I have clients who have said when we talk about asking for help, they don't feel like they can go to their boss because they don't want to bother them, because their time is worth more. Their time is worth something. So they don't want to spend their boss's time on their quote unquote little problems.
Right. And that actually doesn't have to do with how much that person is getting paid. It has to do with where you have placed that person on your little hierarchy of deserving or,
many of us have a sort of pedestal and we'll put people in our lives ahead of ourselves, above ourselves. Their time is worth more than mine.
Yeah. We'll think about that with like the CEO. Oh, he or she, I'm saying he, isn't that terrible? She must have less time than I do. So I don't want to waste her time. So I'm only going to go to her with the most important of problems.
Yeah. And something else that has also come from patriarchy is the devaluation of women's time, the amount of unpaid work that women do in the home.
Did I tell you about that study that I read about? They valued the time that women spend on managing households, managing children, managing schedules, managing all this stuff as $120,000 a year job.
Yes, you did tell me about this.
And we don't see the time that we use for doing all of those household things, whether it's children or otherwise. We don't see that as work time. Like we don't see that as valuable time. We see that as like this aside. It's this administrative thing we have to do, or it's this,
it's just what we have to do.
Yeah. And we certainly don't value it as part of our workday or as we add up the time that we spend not on ourselves in a day.
Yeah. And there's probably women listening thinking, well, when I take care of my kids, that's not work. Like that's kind of how we define, it's in the definition of work. And there's an assumption there that work means it's bad.
Right. Yeah. You can't call that work because my kids shouldn't be work.
Because work is bad.
Shameful.
Right. When cooking dinner, for a lot of women, that does feel like work.
So back to time is hierarchical. We're devaluing that time that we're not spending in the so-called right ways or the ways that are worth money. Like we're putting work time when we're making money up on the pedestal and the time when we're not making money as less valuable time.
Right. Yeah. To kind of wrap this one up, it's also putting others' time before ours. It's the idea that there is a hierarchy to people's time, and some people's time is more important than some other people's time. And that isn't true. Every human hour is actually worth the same.
And that also goes toward, it's saying the time you spend on yourself is worth no less than the time you spend helping others.
No.
Or serving others. Like as women, because we don't value the time that we spend on self-care. We saw this last weekend when mom and dad had that accident.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you haven't heard this story, our parents were in a car accident over Thanksgiving weekend. Mom was hurt, not badly, but she went to the hospital. She was hurt enough to go to the hospital and for them to send her home with painkillers and rest. And it was Thanksgiving weekend. So she got up the next day, made 2 pies and a squash dish for Canadian Thanksgiving dinner. And it didn't even occur to her that she should rest instead.
Mm-hmm. And that we could just pick up the pies from somewhere.
We could have canceled the dinner. We could have ordered pizza. We could have done a million other things so that she could have rested. And then we went to the dinner and she was asleep in the chair because she was so exhausted, of course. And so when this comes back to this hierarchical time, it's like we don't take any value. We don't take even anybody else's opinion, a doctor's opinion, on valuing time for ourselves.
No. And what I see happen a lot, and I have been known to do this myself, so there's no judgment here. I watch so many of our members setting aside time to come to a group call with us, to journal or listen to a meditation, and then they overbook. Like they book on top of their own time. Because someone has asked them for a meeting or someone has asked them to do something. And so they will give up their own time and won't honor that as time, like this is in my schedule. So they constantly put themselves on the back burner for someone else. And I used to do this all the time at work. I'd say, I'm still doing it. I have my side gig and they're constantly wanting to book meetings on Fridays, and I don't do meetings on Fridays. I have my own schedule of what I want to do on Fridays, and that's mostly working on our business. And I keep overbooking on top of what I've said I'm going to do. And finally this week I said, no, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this anymore. The answer is no, I can't make that meeting time. I've got something booked. But we won't say that I've got something booked because that feels like, well, I've just got myself booked.
So the truth is, what is the truth? Time's not hierarchical. It's
no human hours are worth more than another human's hours.
So these are 5 lies about time.
There are others that we haven't gotten to today, but I think that's good.
Well, and you can see actually, as we talked about these 5, how many other beliefs there are wrapped up in them.
Yeah. There's more than, in every example that we gave, there was more than one. And they're so deeply ingrained. It's like, it's the air we breathe. They're invisible. We don't notice them. And yet they have shaped how we live, how we experience life, how we experience time, how we experience work. And once you start noticing, just maybe reflect. Like that might be the first thing you do is just reflect on what we've said today as our listeners. And ask yourself, what beliefs have you gotten caught up in around time?
I was going to say, we'd love to hear them. Tell us what they are.
Yeah, I would love to know which of these 5 beliefs is most prominent for you, but also what other beliefs have been kind of, what did this trigger, this conversation for you?
Yeah, so tell us on Instagram. Sure, I want to also, before we close this out, I want to also just reiterate how important this is in midlife and how this links back to how women feel in midlife. And it's these kinds of beliefs and your relationship with time that causes some of the stress in your life. Like I always acknowledge that all the things that you have to do, yes, your situation causes stress. And this causes stress in your body, which keeps your cortisol high, which keeps you having hot flashes, sleepless nights, the foggy brain, all the symptoms. So when we say like the supplements won't work unless you start prioritizing yourself, there's so much truth to it. Like the supplements don't work on your symptoms unless you change your relationship with time so that you can prioritize yourself.
I totally agree, Jen. That's a good way of wrapping up. The last thing that I want to say is that we have begun exploring all of these ideas and wrapped it up into a process we call Time Alchemy, which is all about changing your relationship with time so that you can do exactly what you just said, Jen, which is prioritizing yourself, letting go of the time pressure that's causing the cortisol spikes, that's causing the symptoms. So Time Alchemy, this process, is something that we are including now in all of our live events, local and our retreat to Peru, and also in our online membership. We will link all of those up into the show notes. They're all at midliferising.com.
Midlifewomenrising.com.
Right. midlifewomenrising.com.